also, we've got two great big cerebral hemispheres that we want to separate with the duramater. So there's a little reflection that comes down between them, right there. And that has its own name. It's called the falx cerebri, which, by the way, came with the duramater. So when you look at the skull cap, you're going to see the duramater, but you'll see that falx cerebri sticking up there too. It's still there. There's also a place where the cerebrum and the cerebellum are separated by duramater. So that's called the tentorium cerebelli. So you have these reflections. So you have to know the names of that. Even though it's duramater, you have to know this is falx cerebri. Okay, so that's the duramater. The subdural space is pretty much the same. The arachnoid layer, right there. Notice there's a little difference there. Something called an arachnoid granulation. It pooches up into the sinus. It goes right through the duramater, and now part of the arachnoid is lying in the sinus. So that's different. Subarachnoid space is there. It still contains cerebrospinal fluid. This is the pia mater, and of course this is cerebral cortex. So there are some major differences of the meninges in the brain. Let me just highlight this, make sure you picked up on it. This is the falx cerebri. So that's the part going down between the two cerebral hemispheres. And this is the tentorium cerebelli. Tent, it's a tent over the cerebellum. So now that we've taken care of those two things, we can talk about cerebrospinal fluid. It's not from your book, but that might be something similar. All right. Where is cerebrospinal fluid made? That's where we need to start. Where is it made? And it's made in something called the choroid plexus. There's a little reddish area right there. Another one down here. So this is a typical choroid plexus. So what's in the choroid plexus? Capillaries, specialized cells. Okay. So cerebrospinal fluid is a derivative of plasma. It's not exactly like plasma because of the blood-brain barrier. Not everything goes across. But cerebrospinal fluid is a lot like plasma. Okay, it's a derivative of blood. And where does it go? The flow is on your objectives there. It's not a big, long flow, pretty short. It goes into the ventricles. It's emptied into the ventricles. All these light blue areas are ventricles. And then, you don't have to know the names or where they are, but there's little tiny passageways where the cerebrospinal fluid can go from the ventricles into the subarachnoid space, which are the blue areas right there. So now you've got cerebrospinal fluid perfusing the subarachnoid spaces. And then, right here, remember the arachnoid granulations that go into the sinuses? So there, the cerebrospinal fluid will move into the venous blood. So it's right back into the blood. So cerebrospinal fluid is constantly being made and constantly being returned back to the blood. There is a flow. Okay. We don't have too much more to go here. You're going to be out early today. You'll walk around in that rain a little bit. Okay. So we're through with the part that says organization of the brain. Now we're going to do the cerebrum. We're just going to have a few little introductory comments about the cerebrum, but not just all of it, but just the cerebral cortex, which is the outer layer. So what we have up here, let's get terminology down. This whole thing is the cerebrum. Okay? It's made up of two cerebral hemispheres, this one, the right and left. The outer layer that you're looking at is called the cerebral cortex. It's the gray matter. The gray matter is on the outside here, on the right of the spinal cord. It's only about 1/4 of an inch thick. But it covers, so when you pick up the brain, when you touch the brain, you're touching cerebral cortex. So that's the outer layer of the cerebrum. Okay. You'll notice that you have a groovy brain. All these grooves, they're called sulci. One would be sulcus. Okay, so it's sulcus. Surrounded by ridges called gyri, or gyrus, singular. You can kind of visualize it as the valleys surrounded by mountains. Okay? So what's the purpose of all these grooves? What would be the purpose? Surface area. If you were to spread out, get rid of all the grooves, the brain would cover 2.5 square feet. Can you imagine having a brain that big? So obviously, you want as much surface area so you get all of these functions. So that's where all your higher functions are located, in the cerebral cortex. So that's because the grooves there. Now, all these grooves have names, and all the ridges have names, every one of them. You're only going to learn 2 grooves and 2 ridges, okay? You're going to learn the central sulcus right there, and the lateral sulcus. You have to be able to identify those and then label them. And the 2 gyri would be the postcentral gyrus and the precentral gyrus. Sort of indicates they're on each side of the central sulcus. Okay? And so those are the 2 gyri. And basically, you're going to be able to find out why I'm having you learn these on Monday. So, I think I've got to the point where I stopped before, so you can't miss Monday's lecture because we're going to talk about Hannibal the Cannibal, who is going to participate in the lecture.
Who? Hannibal Lecter. He's the bad guy from Song of the Land.
Whatever.
I know it's an old movie, but you should know who Hannibal the Cannibal is.
I don't know.
Yeah, Dr.